Let me just start off this video by thanking Robin at Cozy RPG Reviews, because I think without his review and a little bit of debate from my Discord, I don't think I'd have ever picked this up, because Robin, in his review, described this as possibly one of the most perfect games. He says, I think it was along the lines of, there are no perfect games, but this comes pretty close. And he's right. He is really right on this one. I've cheated with picking up Fabula Ultima for a while now, and even to the extent where at the UK Gaming Expo this year, I saw a copy of it, and I was quite shocked. As you can see over my shoulder here, it's A5 size, 362 pages. I was like, I'm never going to be able to read that. The font's going to be tiny, the layout's going to be awful. And oh boy, was I wrong. And I'm so pleased to be wrong that it's such an amazing game. And I know I'm doing my final thoughts before I even get into the review, and you probably don't need to watch the rest of the video now, because I deeply recommend this. But let me get into the book and explain what this does. And it's I'm going to be talking about all those wonderful Japanese TTRPGs, Final Fantasy. I think I got into it at sort of 6 or 7. Shining Force, and Shining Force 2, which I missed an awful lot of college and university of, because old games didn't have abilities to pause. So if you're in the middle of a battle, you had to just miss college, because what's more important, replaying the battle or going to college? Education's not important. You can find education. No, not really finish your degree off. Okay, so I picked this up at Dungeonland here in the UK. So they're based up in Blackpool, where I pick up all this. It's not a sponsored link. It's just that I use them because you can pick up physical copies of books relatively cheap, and they do send you PDFs of most things in there, because they are a proper bricks and mortar store, and also their shipping is incredibly fast. This is a weird one though, because actually when I opened up the book, inside there is a free PDF copy that you can get it. So if you do pick it up elsewhere and a new copy, you are going to pick it up. But say Dungeonland isn't my sponsored link, but I will put a link to them in the video description, because it's my go-to place for physical books. Okay, I think that's enough. Let's just now take you through the PDF copy, and let me show you why I and Robin are telling you that you should buy this. I think you should get this whether you like Japanese TTRPGs, but this game it's inspired by that. I say it's taken Final Fantasy, Shining Force, which was the one that I remember playing most, and it does absolutely cover this in artwork, game design, combat, the way it makes the combat. And because if you've ever played any of those games, the only thing you're not adjacent to is a flying creature. So whether you're doing a melee attack, or I'm getting onto mechanics too quick, but yeah, say 362 pages, A5. It also comes with a slipcase, which is really weird, because so it actually has that presence and feel on the shelf of an actual novel. But we're going to see this artwork throughout. But one of the reasons it falls down and becomes a really easy read is layout, font, and colours used. This is a dyslexic's dream, the way that this is laid out. So game design, writing and development is by Emmanuel Giluto. I think that's how it's pronounced. Then we've got a little bit of the author's foreword in here, but I kind of want to sort of show you, really how this is laid out. But initially, obviously, we're going to get the content. But the content is over 2 pages, which is nice, because some of these longer books, when they'll go, here's a huge amount of content here, and they'll put them at 4 or 5 pages, but it's all hyperlinked. It's not on the names, it's hyperlinked on the numbers. Throughout this PDF as well, the hyperlinking will have you backwards and forwards jumping around the PDF. So if you've got physical copies, absolutely great, because that's, you can get in and read it properly. If you're going on PDFs, you can bounce around how you need to. But initially, you're going to take you through the introduction, so the 8 pillars, games master as well. We then get all of the rules, and the sort of game section on how it all works, which is the first 140 pages. Press start, sorry, is character creation, which is, what's that, 90 pages. Reason for that is we have got 15 different character classes to pick from. You're going to start off at level 5, so you're going to have between 2 to 3 of all of these amazing character classes. Then get a games master section, and then we've got a bestiary that comes in about 30 pages at the back of the book there. So the introduction, as you'd expect. So actually I can use this to show you what I mean. It's nice and easy. There's lots of bold in here, and the paragraphs are they tend to be relatively small. But as we get into the book, you'll see this. There's lots of chapter headings, lots of headings and titles, really good breakdown. And it uses different colours throughout, because there's little things like there's sort of like new rules to add in, and then it just becomes, you're actually kind of reading it like an instruction manual, but a kind instruction manual because of its use of colours and stuff. Because even when it's here, you know, you've got the little backgrounds to sort of, and it just breaks up the reading. And there is a ton, I reckon half of this book, let's say a quarter, is examples, and then sort of tables. So you're not even really reading the full 362 pages. But from Japanese TTRPG, it is a style of role-playing that is based around sort of anime, as well as, I say, those sort of classic Final Fantasy inspired sort of arcade games of, well, for me, the sort of 90s. I know Final Fantasies now exist, and it's probably in episode 4. I don't even know where we are. It must be in the 20s, somewhere around there. But as you'd imagine, for most of these role-playing books, it's just going to set out your sort of abbreviations. So, you know, RPG is role-playing games, TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games. Talk about GM, which would be the games master. It's going to have sort of 2 to 5 players, and it's just going to sort of break you through, you know, how to do this. Now, in essence, this is probably one of the most important lines in here. This game is heroic and fantastic action. The players are playing full heroes. This isn't a game designed to be villainous people. When they create the characters, you are larger than life people that are going to go out and protect and defend the world. A world, more importantly, that the players themselves have helped create. That is some of the other brilliant things of this. Dungeon Master, it's going to be up to you to create the villains, and the villains are going to go from mild little interferences to, through game mechanics, can become real big bads and grow to become epic bosses of campaigns. And this whole game is going to allow that to happen. So you've got this heroic destiny here, you've got challenging battles, and say the world. The world is the way the players have created it using the 8 core principles known as the 8 pillars. So the 8 pillars here for world creation. So they're going to look at the ancient ruins in there, the world at peril, clashing communities, everything has a soul, magic and technology, or technology that you can actually go more fantasy as opposed to sort of magical. Say many different heroes in different shapes and sizes. So you've got 15 different character classes to pick from, and you're going to be able to combine them for some epic combos. So it's all about heroes. There is nothing, no villainy. All the players are larger than life, good type people. And you've got an element of mystery and discovery and growth in the players. So this is your first choice, is whether you play in a high fantasy setting. And that's going to give you some rules and ideas and sort of the ideas of themes and protagonists in there, whether you want a natural fantasy setting or go on the full techno fantasy setting. There are actually additional books for each of these 3 settings you can go out and buy that I noticed that I don't own, but I will be buying them soon because I've fallen in love with this. This is just, I want everything to do with it now. And at Kickstarter, there's a bestiary that has just gone on, and someone put in the comments that he's gone in $500 in there, and I'm like, because it's a softback copy, but if I go on the Kickstarter, I can get hardback copies. I already spoiling the fact that I totally love this game. Now, how do we play it? Well, a few things you're going to need. You're going to need character sheets, which aren't included in this book. There isn't a character sheet in the whole of the book which is weird, and I don't like it. I like an example of a character. You can find them, but they just say they're on their website, or if you've bought this as PDF copies, it's there. So if you've gotten here, you can pick up the PDF copies. But obviously, you're going to need pencils or razors. You're going to need some tokens, because as a player, you're going to be keeping track of your Fabula points, which is a meta currency that may be the first red flag for people that don't like meta currencies. And if you don't like meta currencies, you kind of need to learn to play with meta currencies, because you are missing out on some incredibly good games. Dice, nice and easy. You need D6s, D8s, D10s, D12s, and the occasional D20s. And the dice mechanic in this game is you're just going to have 2 dice, you're going to roll them both, you're going to add them together, and that gives you your total. The only other thing you need to keep on is the higher number of the dice. Occasionally, through magic items, spells and damage, you're going to need to remember the higher dice in there. But we'll come on to that when we get onto the proper mechanics, well, the full-on mechanics of the game. But for the players, what the players need to do, read this book, gather the tools and the dice, create the world together, which comes in at page 148, which I could click onto now, and it would take you straight there, which is brilliant. Choose the type of group. So are you a revolutionary group? Are you a bunch of heroes that have come together for a specific goal? Are you a fellowship? Or do you perchance just happen to be in the bar when the wizard old man is asking for help? You're then going to create your heroic character. See, this game, it doubles down on heroic characters. You're then going to cooperate with everyone else on how you all sort of fit in together. You're going to contribute to the ongoing story. You're going to play as a hero. Reminding you again, it's just talked about heroic characters, playing as a hero, and then you're going to play to change and evolve the world. Games Master, you've got all the work. You've actually got considerably less work in this, because when you are creating the world, the players are co-creating the world with you. You're going to bring it to life with the 8 pillars. The players also can use their Fabula points to change the world, which is a mechanic that we'll come on to as we get there. So a lot of Games Masters panic when they're world building, but you're doing this in kind of like a session 0 together with the players and you creating the world. And the players are also going to be able to change the world as life goes on. So all you've got to do is sort of breathe that little bit of life into the world, listen to the players, and use their bad guys that they've wanted, the idea of their characters, the sort of the NPC characters to go. It seems like a really nice, relaxed way of going. So we're then going to get into chapter 2, which is the game rules. So this is about 100 odd pages in the book. But initially, the Games Master it talks about scenes here. Now, this is, so again, Japanese TTRPGs. If you think back to those sort of games, there are going to be scenes. So the Games Master is going to set a scene and just talk about the sort of set the start of the adventure, and that's going to be done through dialogue, so the players aren't really going to be involved in that. And variety throughout the game, and time as the adventure goes on, you're going to do these. You're going to be doing these scenes for the players, and then once the scene is over, then the players can start. And the best way to think about this is a cutscene to me in a computer game. There's a lot of times where especially the Japanese games, things like Metal Gear Solid have them, which, you'd be in between a mission and you just have a cutscene. That's what you're going to do. And then you're going to get into the session. Sessions then build into campaigns. So we've got a few important things here. So we've got allies, which tend to be anyone that's in the scene that is on the side of the PCs. They're always going to be rounding down in here. If you're going to do any maths, because of the way powers will actually work, or are they called skills in this, not necessarily powers, you're always going to be going addition, subtraction, multiplications, and then division. And then a couple of rules here for timing, so if people have got a few powers to go off at once. Here is the only evidence I could find of the character sheet in here, on a blank character sheet, on how it looks. So you can go and get them from their website. But characters in general, so you're going to have a few different traits and themes in your origin, which is sort of where you come from. You're going to have some bonds, which we'll talk about in a bit, and that's how well you get on with other people in the party or different NPCs, and you're going to be able to use your bond to help you be more successful in your roles. You're then going to store your Fabula points. Fabula points, say, are a meta currency that you're going to want to spend during a session. You can have unlimited ones, but any ones that you spend at the end of the session are converted into experience. So the game does encourage you to do that. Your character level is 5 when you start with, so you're not going to be a lowly first level character. You can be a 5th level character with 5 different levels in one of the 15 different classes, and you can max out at level 50. Classes and skills, so depending on what class you are will determine the skills that you're going to get. We've got 4 attributes in here: dexterity, which is your finesse and dodging, your insight, observation and understanding, might, strength and fortitude, willpower is your determination, charisma and discipline. And when the games master asks you to do something, you're going to select 2 of those, or the same one twice, and you're going to roll those dice. We've got a few other things like hit points. Because it's a Japanese TTRPG, you can have a lot of hit points. You can have sort of 50, maybe to 100 hit points, even more as you go up the levels. But you're going to start doing compoundly that sort of level of damage again as you go up levels. You've got mind points in here, which is MP, which is, it's going to be spent to pull off some of your skills and your magic abilities. Then we've got IP, which is your inventory slots, which basically covers weapons and armor. Everything else, the games master, I think you've got 6, and it's kind of decided that, you know, if you're going to have rope or magic potions and things, you've kind of automatically got there. It's like a don't take the mick rule in here, you know, with the games master. You sort of talk to the games master, does it make sense for you to have things, and then you've got them. So it's quite nice. Players are only really thinking like in a, you know, computer game. This just does feel computer game full on. We may have a defense modifier here, a magical defense modifier, then get your initiative modifier, you get equipment and backpack, which is just going to cover everything else. You know, your rope, your candles, your lipstick, whatever it is you're taking with you. And the currency of the world is Zenit. Checks. How do checks work? I say you tell the games master what you're planning to do, and between you and the games master you will decide on what it is you're trying to do. So for example here, you're going to be using, so insight and willpower check is used to perform a character. So he's got d6 in the insight and d10 in the willpower, so he rolls them both together, which means he's going to get a result between 2 and 16. That's it. And then you just basically add the checks together. That is the, I think it's going to be the strangest bit when you're playing this, is knowing exactly which skills, which attributes to use. But that's just going to come over a period of time. And there will be certain times where, you know, if someone's doing a strength roll, you're going to be using might and might. So, but you still always roll 2 dice. So if you've got d10 in that, you're going to roll 2d10 and add them together. These little check here, so it's like these little boxes around, you know, when to perform checks, give you an idea when the, you know, heroes may fail something. It's relevant to your background or impossible actions. Critical rolling is nice and easy. Whenever you roll a double on both the dice and it's a minimum of a 6, you're going to get a critical success. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are crits, and you're going to fumble if both dice are 1. Criticals, obviously going to do something good. Fumble, going to do something bad. But when you do fumble, you're going to earn yourself a Fabula point anyway. So when you do get the critical success, you're going to get an opportunity. Now, there is a list of opportunities down here, so you can have like advantage on a check, give you a +4 to a skill roll. You're going to create a bond or an emotion with someone else. More importantly, you may actually get plot twist, which means you can suddenly change the scene to your favour. Now that I get to do a lot in, because I play quite a bit of Modiphius 2D20, and that has that very much feel of just being able to allow the players to, because sometimes scenes can seem a little bit difficult on how the players are going to achieve something. So, for example, let's make a perception check because we want to find a way into the castle. And you've described the castle, and they go, okay, we're going to change the scene. We are going to put an open window here. Whatever it may, do you know what I mean? Or a slightly crumbling wall, something along those lines. And you just go as a player, as a games master, you go, excellent. You know, I had a way that they're going to get in. They've now got a new way in. So they're going to be able to dictate things as well off these opportunities as well. So it's a nice example here. This book's going to do a lot of this on how to perform checks. Difficulty level. So because you're adding both die together, normally the normal success, see what I did there, is 10. So add them together, 10 or more is a success. If it's easy, it's 7. If it's hard, it's 13. If it's very hard, it is 16. But it does say here, go with 10. If you're the games master and you find stumped or choosing the appropriate difficulty, use 10. Then it's going to just take you through a little bit here about checks in play, when to invoke, dice roll for the players, which as an experienced player, a lot of this probably should become quite, familiar to you. But we then get into invoking traits to reroll dice and then invoking bonds. Okay, so traits are things like your identity, origin, or theme. So, for example, the Shadow might have Gaondan Empire or guilt as their theme. So that means you spend one of your Fabula points, and if it's relevant, so let's say they want to defend a village and they come from the Malorn village, is the example here. You can say, I want to invoke my trait to reroll the dice because I failed the attack roll because I'm using it to defend. And the games master go, yep, that's fine. Invoking bonds, so this is how you personally feel about somebody. That's going to allow you to add the level of the bond to the roll. So this isn't a reroll. So you might find that you only need 2 points to succeed. So it's got an example here that you may have the bond of inferiority or hatred towards someone. And again, you may fail by a certain amount. And then you go, actually, I want to invoke that bond because I really need to succeed. So you spend your Fabula points. You don't like them, you've got the inferiority or hatred by 2. So you're going to have to add 2 to the roll to add to the success. We'll talk about bonds and traits and stuff in a little bit when they actually come up. You can have +1s for things like accuracy. We're going to have, when you do magic checks, you need to keep an eye on the HR, which is what I said earlier about the high roll. So that's the highest rolling die, because a lot of attacks, be it magical and melee and range attacks, you're going to need to keep an eye on that, because that's just for the amount of damage that's going to be used in there. Group checks. So this game does use group checks, and what you need to do is nominate the leader. All of the supporting people that can help can then make an attack, a skill roll, and they are looking at a difficulty of 10. If they get 10 or more, then they can add their successes to the dice roll that the leader rolls. You're also going to pick the bonds of one of the additional players as well. So if you need to use those bonds, you can. We've got some examples here of rolls. So if you're going to be silent, move stealth, things along those lines, you're going to use dex and dex. Compete in a work of craftsmanship or repairing something is dex and intuition. So this is another one of those that I think will become familiar over time. But initially, it kind of worries me that I'm going to get it wrong. But in fairness, as long as you're consistent with what you use, at least for that session, I don't think it matters. Clocks. Clocks are something that I think all games masters should use. They do make reference to John Harper's Blades in the Dark, because that uses clocks well. I tend to use just dice instead of clocks, and all this is a mechanic where as each round goes on, you're just knocking a box off. And so I just tend to do, so if you're going to use 4 boxes here on it, you could just put a D4 on there, put it on 1, and then start the next round, turn it around to 4, to 2, etc. So what all it means is it's going to push the adventure on, and players are going to know at certain events and certain times that something else is going to happen. But it does mean that the players can, if they want to, take an action. So instead of attacking, one of the actions they can do is actually turning back the clock. So here are the bonds. We have 6 different types of bonds, and they work in emotional pairing. So we've got admiration, inferiority, loyalty, mistrust, affection, and hatred. And as you can see here, you've got admiration or inferiority, loyalty or mistrust, or affection or hatred. Now you can have up to 3 sets of bonds with 3 different people in the game, and say these are just something that you're going to invoke at certain situations that is going to allow you to add the whether you're loyal to one of the members of your party, if you're trying to help them and you fail a dice roll, you can spend a Fabula point and then use that bond to actually help them or yourself achieve something. Conflicts in the scene. This is what happens when the story comes to its climax. Conflicts, it may be a battle, it may be a chase scene, something along those lines, or a duel between 2 ancient rivals. And this will just take you through how to work out the scene. So you work out who's involved, you discuss the goals, because not everyone has the same goals in the theme. You then, it's going to start before you do initiative checks. You then basically, it goes alternate as well in this one. So if you win initiative, your group decide who goes first. Then the games masters then there, and you basically go 1 for 1 until both sides, well, one side has run out, and then you keep going. Where if the games master's big boss has got 3 attacks, he doesn't do all 3 attacks. He goes 1 attack back to the players, next attack back to the players, and it allows the players to then work out exactly their order. So it might slow things down a little bit, but it's going to allow them to be tactically, because once we get into the combat, you're going to see that everyone is practically adjacent. So space and distance is here. So the only real things that can't fight. So if you think back to Final Fantasy, if you've ever played it, if you're fighting in melee and they've got a range attack, you can still attack them, because technically you sort of jump in, and as the players, they're going to have to describe how they do it. Hit with the sword, jump back out. The only thing you can't hit in melee is flying creatures. So if you've got a melee attack, sword, whatever it may be, then you can't actually hit the flying creatures, which I used to love in Shining Force, where there was a lot of hawk men I had, and I ended up just trying to recruit a huge amount of hawk people, because it meant that they could swoop down, hit things, and then not get hit. But problem is with that, if you have too many of them, your magic users that don't tend to wear a lot of armor tend to get hit a lot. So again, you've got to kind of think about group dynamics, which again, you're going to need to do in this when you are creating characters together. So what that basically means, when it comes to actions, you're going to have like a minor action, which may be picking up or interacting with shields. You don't get a move action in this, because everyone is within the battlefield, so to speak. So your actions will be things like an attack, guard, which is going to make it +2, it's harder to hit. You may be able to do an objective, so work towards, ending the scene, cast a spell, study to gain some general information or an opening about the person that you're fighting, use a skill or something along those lines. So it does give that flexibility for some of your characters, where if they are a little bit wounded or you've run out of magic points, instead of doing nothing, you have to do something in this, and you do get that wonderful default of just going into that guard to sort of protect yourself. So here's that study action, where you're going to be sort of looking at the person, generally trying to find out a little bit more of his details. Has he got a certain weakness? Is he, what sort of attacks is he going to do? Things along those lines. Now, we're finally just here talking about teamwork, which you're really going to have to sit down and work it out like a puzzle, because when we start getting into the NPCs, and especially the sort of boss characters, they are going to have specific strengths and weaknesses that the players are going to need to find out quite quickly on how it goes. We then get some examples here. The sequence of events, if you were trying to convince a queen to sort of gain benefits or favour from them, how to sort of stop a ritual. We then get some optional rules. I always say throw in optional rules. I tend to like optional rules. And the only one that I might not pick is this superiority. Not initially anyway, but you're going to want ambushes and surprise rounds in there. You're going to want players outside of the conflict to still be involved in there. But superiority feels like advantage in Warhammer Fantasy role-playing. It is a group advantage. I like it, but it's just a little bit of added complexity that, read it for yourself, because it's going to allow you to do it. Well, basically, in essence, it's going to get you to have 1 extra attack per round. But there are going to be some consequences to it, because you don't just get bonus stuff and not have something go bad for you either. So hit points and mind points. As you imagine, hit points, that's the amount of damage before the person goes down. We've got this wonderful crisis, which is the blooded effect. If you think back to Warhammer, Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition, which basically means once you get to half hit points, then certain skills, being attacking skills and defensive skills or powers of the NPCs, are going to have some game-changing effects. So you do need to work out what your crisis point is, and it just switches on additional abilities. It's really good. I like this, and it's also from the player's point of view. It's when the NPC goes into crisis, they know they're halfway through. They've got an idea of where they are. MP is mind points, which let's say the players will tend to use for skills, and skills included in this game will be spells. Non-player characters, once they get to 0 hit points, tend to be out of the battle and out of the game. However, villains can do a couple of different things. They can escape at 0 hit points or surrender. Now, escaping, if they've got an ultimate point We haven't talked about Ultima Point. Game players get Fabula points. Games Master gets Ultima points. Well, villains get Ultima points anyway. So if they've got 1 left and they're down to 0 hit points, they can spend the 1 and leave the combat. Talk about this in session 0. It will stop the players just getting a little bit miffed that they've gone through all that conflict and then they still escape. They can escalate. Now this is, it says not to do it very often, say maybe 2 or 3 times at most in the whole of the campaign. This is what I said about the villain leveling up. So they still escape, but they then become better. They're more enraged that they were defeated by the players. They are determined to go back and strike their revenge. Or they can surrender. So they can just go, do you know what? I'm sorry. And then they are captured. So there's no real defeating them in there. And players work exactly the same. So the players can choose to die if they want to, if it actually fits. But more often than not, they may pick in something like the sacrifice in here, which means they have to lose something. It may be a bond towards a player, or a certain item that may go, or they may be surrendered and they kind of disappear out for a little while out of the gameplay. If you want to get your hit points back, nice, easy, find somewhere peaceful to rest, be it in a settlement, and you're going to get all your mind points, all your hit points back, recover from all status effects. And if you can't find there, for 4 inventory points, you can have a magic tent that you're carried around with the group and you can rest there. Take the tent. Always have someone taking the tent. You can also then change things like your bonds when you are resting, because you can sit back and reflect on the time. Another table you're going to want to print off, this one. This is the type of damage that players and NPCs can take or give out, and also you're going to be potentially going to be vulnerable, resistant, immune, or my favorite, absorption. So if this is this symbol ice here, vulnerable, so they're going to take twice damage. Obviously resistant to it, half damage. Immune, no damage. Absorption, hit them with ice, do 10 points of damage. They're going to heal for 10 points of damage. Absorption is the best ability. And that's what I'm saying. This is why you might want to do that study action, because you need to be paying attention to all damage types that you do, especially to the big villains in here as well. We've got a variety of status effects, which we've seen these in other games. So, whether you're going to be dazed, estranged, poison, it's just going to tell you which attribute you're going to reduce down by 1 dice size in here as well. Fabula points, say the player's meta currency, you're going to get 1. I'd say you can have unlimited amount of them, but you're going to want to spend them, because spend them, you're going to get more experience points at the end of the session. But you're going to use these to, invoke your bonds, re-roll dice, things like that. And there's a few examples here on how to alter the story if you want to. The villains in the game are the powerful antagonists, and they're going to be one of 3 levels. They're going to be minor, major, or supreme. This is what we're talking about when they level up, when they escape. So they have Ultima points, which effectively work exactly the same as Fabula points. The only difference is they're never going to replenish. They don't get them back. If you've got a minor villain, they're only ever going to have 5 points. Well, that is unless they escalate. And when they escalate, they're going to come back as majors. So they're going to get 10 more Ultima points. And if they ever do it again to the Supreme, they're going to get 15. So theoretically, you could start with this little bad villain that starts as just a small guy in a compound that doesn't like the players for whatever reason, but as the story goes on, you can advance him into become a major villain and then ultimately a supreme villain in there. And that's going to be quite cool, actually, where the players think that so-and-so that lives in the castle is the main supreme villain, and it's not. Actually, someone steps up and takes over, and pushes them down. Details then on what happens with the escalation in there in the Fabula points. So the IP inventory points, so players are going to get 6 in there, and they can put in variety of items and magical items in there as well. So that's just detailing that. Journeys and Travels is done in quite an interesting way, because if you think you've designed the world together as players, and when they want to travel everywhere, what the Games Master needs to do is just think of the threat level, work it out. So let's say they're going through hills, forests and rivers. He's going to go, but it's probably a medium, so we're going to roll a d10. D10, you say, is that good or bad? Well, on a 6 or higher, they've encountered danger. 50-50. But if you're going through villages and cities, 1 in 6. Going to a desert, it's going to be a good chance that you're going to find something bad. But on any of those dice, if you roll a 1, you're going to get unexpected discovery. So we're then going to get the examples of some dangers on the next page, which could be, things like a polluted swamp, or a group of antagonists or creatures that are ready to attack. But the discoveries, the good things, might be a merchant caravan, a secluded village, or a haven that is safe. There's only 2 pages on dungeons in this game, because being a Japanese TTRPG, it's not really about dungeons. But you can go exploring dungeons in here, and it talks about setting the clocks up, and depending on how many sections you want the dungeons to be. Now, magic. We've got 5 schools of magic, which is arcanism, chimerism, elementalism, entropism, and spiritualism. And then we get the 6th one, which is ritualism. Okay, so the first 5 are actual classes the players can pick from, and then all of them can have ritualism apart from arcanist. Okay, so it'll make sense once we get to it. But spells, this is just how the spells are set out. So then you have the name of the spells, the MP, which is the magic points that you're going to need, times 10. So this is 10 times T. So depending on how many targets you're going to cast, so if you're going to go against, here you go, up to 3 creatures. So if you're going to attack 3 creatures, that costs you 30. Duration instantaneous. So the only other thing here is this little symbol here, which you get to see here, this little red lightning bolt. That means it's an offensive spell. And if it's an offensive spell, you're going to need to make a casting check. And depending on which type of magic will determine which 2 dice you're going to roll to get over that. And to successfully cast it, you're going to want to beat their magic defense. And then just gives you some examples there on casting spells. Rituals, say everyone's going to get the chance to catch rituals apart from the arcanist. But with rituals, what you find is they are sort of minor spells that, well, actually there can be some big spells, but these are things that are going to take slightly longer that the players can create themselves. Now, I sometimes like this, sometimes dislikes it. It's going to come down on the personal group and the players and the games master to work out costs. It does seem to give some good little examples in the book. So we've got some example rituals in here, and costs and clock timings and how long it's going to go. So it always feels a little bit strange to me that, say, when we look at the skills and spells that we've got in the character creation, there's a lot of choice. But I like the flexibility that there's some additional stuff, but I think some players might sort of find it difficult to actually come up with them. Economy and items. We've got lots of tables of items coming up in a second, but the main thing to remember is Zenith is the cost that the players are going to spend on there whenever they're buying something. So it's basically dollars, but it just gives you then examples of things like, how much it costs to stay in a village, buying armor, weapons, things like that. We have got, so this again looks perfect computer game. All the little items here. We then got, whether it's a martial weapon, which is what this red thing is, here's the cost, the dice that you're going to roll for it. And here we got HR plus 10 physical. So HR high roll, remember, you're rolling 2 dice. You're going to roll your might twice here. You roll 2d10 for argument's sake. You get an 8 and a 7. So you remember the 8. So you're going to end up doing 18. And the damage type is physical. That's it. That is it. So we've just got loads of armor. Armor, as you'd imagine, is going to increase the difficulty to be hit and help sort of keep you alive longer. Group dynamics, I say, try and keep the environment sensible and safe. And we do have some rules here. So player character versus player character. It's not something I tend to allow in my games. Doesn't come up very often, but if you need it, the rules are here on page 141. Okay, character creation, or press start. So you're going to have your session 0 and just sort of sit down with the characters. And you definitely would explain to them about the villains sort of picking up and, escalating or whatever it may be. But you're just going to sit down, do your expectations, do the tone and themes of the games, sort of rules and changes, any sort of, explain there's going to be depictions of violence, fighting against evil, variety of that. We then get the 7 steps of world creation, which say is done with the players and the games masters together. So you're all going to sit down and build this world. So initially you're going to work out whether the world is round or flat and what sort of regions you're going to have. You're going to take a map and then you're going to work out some specific locations and then what sort of magical role, or is it technology world? Each player is then going to pick some kingdoms and nations in there. You're all going to discuss historical events, any sort of enigmas or mysteries that are going on in the world, and what each player will then pick a terrible threat. If a player is gazumped and doesn't know what to think, that's okay. We've got some random tables here for technology, kingdoms, names, villages, historical events, named locations, and things like that. We're then going to do your group creation. Say, are they brought together by fate, guardians, seekers, revolutionary, or just happen to be in the pub at the right time or wrong time? Character creation is 8 steps. Identity. So briefly look at, were you a royal knight, or the overall arc of your character. You're then going to have the theme of your character. You're then going to pick your origin, where you came from. You're going to pick your 2 or 3 classes. So we've got 5 levels to spread across them. It's going to be the longest part of the character creation. You're going to pick your attributes. We're then going to do your static things like hit points, mind points. You're going to work out your magic, and then you're going to do your names and pronouns. So creating your identity is nice and simple. So it's a freedom fighting brawler, tech magic scientist, something along those lines. Got some tables here. If you're struggling, you can randomly roll them. Then going to choose your theme, whether you are, ambitious, anger, duty. So it's just going to be a word that you can use. Again, all of these things are things that you can, spend your Fabula points to help you get rerolls. You're going to then create your origin, where you come from. And then this is the slowest bit. You're going to get 5 levels, and you have to spend 5 levels. You have to have at least 2 different classes, and you can up to go to 3. So I think probably the best way to do this is just show you one of the classes when we get to it. But don't feel intimidated, because it has got some examples in the book. Say, attributes, you can decide how you're going to spread your dice over this. Do you want to be a jack of all trades and have 8s in all of them? Do you want to be Mr. Average and have a D10 in one, a D8, a D8, and then a D6 in the last one? Or do you want to be specialised and have 2 D10 or 2 D6? Once all that's sorted, it will tell you then to calculate your hit points, calculate your mind points. You kind of don't want to do all these until your armor is done, but that's fine. So calculate defense, magic defense, and initiative, buy your equipment, and then you're ready to go. So, and each player is then also going to have 3 Fabula points, so get 3 tokens to go. We then get lists of more items and basic items to buy. Finishing touches is your names. So here are the next 4 pages. We've got some examples. So if you want to be a ninja, for argument's sake, it tells you to take 3 levels of rogue and which skills to take. So take cheap shot and dodge twice. I'll explain that when we get to it. 1 level in spiritualist and then 1 level in master. And it's going to give you the items. And it also tells you how to set your attributes as well. So let's just go and let's go on Dark Blade. I'm not going to go through all 15 of these. But it'll give you a description of here with some art, explains what the Dark Blades are. So Dark Blade free benefit, you're going to get a permanent increase of hit points by 5. So each one of these that you get 1 level in, you're going to get the permanent effect. You're then going to be able to pick one of these skills for your 1 level. Okay, and you can pick any of them. Some of them have got stars here, and that is, so if you pick multiple levels, you can only ever take up to 5 ranks here in agony, which is what the 5 represents there. So this is going to be the bit that players are going to spend a lot of time on, because if you start looking, say things like the sort of the martial class tend to be over 2 pages, but once we get into, let's pick one of the magic classes quickly. So like the spiritualist here, so healer priest, so they're going to get +5 in mine. They're going to basically be able to pick spiritual magic, so they're going to get 1 magical skill. So we'll go over here and they'll be able to pick one of these skills, or spells as you could technically call them. Then every additional level they're going to get another spell in that. And that's it. It's as simple as I say, as simple as that. There's a lot going on to try and work it out in there as well. So you can see, if you go down the Tinkerer route, you've got several pages of the Tinkerer because they can do infusions and things like along those lines. Then page 262 is going to talk about experience and levels. This is a level-based game, so as you gain experience, you're going to be able to spend that to then buy additional levels in any of the classes. So you can only have up to 10 ranks in a class, and the most you can have is 3 different classes. Once you've got 1 to 10, you can then look at for a 4th class. So as I said, the maximum you're ever going to have is 10, and you cap out maximum at level 50. You can add attributes as well as time goes on in here. There are some heroic skills. So once you get to level 10, you're going to get a special heroic skill or a capstone skill, which I'm not going to spoil. You can go and have a look at these for yourself. So not only are you going to get that a 10th level skill, but you're going to get something really cool, which I'm just going to skip through because you can find that out in your own time when you buy this, because I bet you're already scouring the internet for a copy. So we are 2/3 through the book, and we've now got the Games Master section, which this is actually pretty good. I say that about a lot of books now. You know, I'd class myself as an experienced Games Master, but I still do enjoy reading these when they are well read out and well presented. But it's going to take you through session zeros, things to do during play, what to do in between sessions. As a Games Master, you should also, it wants you to tailor the sort of adventures and one-shots you're going to do to the classes of the players that you've got, because if you're going to write a specific adventure where you're going to need, for example, a rogue, and there's no rogue skills in there, the adventure's just going to come to a halt. So it's just going to sort of talk to you about the type of adventures that you should be writing for specifically towards the players and the classes that they've picked. Also, the art of villains, so talking about different villains, whether they're minor, major or supreme, and their goals, what they're going to do, what they want to achieve, and also potentially when to escalate for the players in there as well. Dungeons, if you are going to go down the dungeon route, you know, do you want to do a prepared or improvised? Prepared. I don't like randomly rolling dungeons. I've got lots of books. You know, Shadow Dark is very good for creating random dungeons. I still don't like rolling random dungeons. I like my dungeons to feel alive, and a reason, you know, why was the dungeon created is one of the first things, you know, because if it's random, they don't always feel like that. But this has got some good hints and tips as well. So think about the look of the dungeon, draw a sketch out, place different rewards in there, obstacles and threats. So make sure you include traps, puzzles, hostile creatures, put 1 or 2 danger clocks in there to, you know, determine some things that are going to go on, flood water coming in, lava coming in, things like that. And then your focal point, which is your main antagonist at the back of the dungeon. Got some random tables here to help with population, dungeon concepts, and different financial rewards depending on the levels of the players. If you want to design rare magical items, some hints and tips in here, as well as a sort of, it gives you a cost of, and then some examples. I love looking at examples of random magic items. What we've got here, see, here's a knife heart. It's quite expensive. Dex and willpower, high roll +4, and it's going to do some light damage. One hand deals 5 extra damage to demons. Nice and simple. Rare flails, spears, heavy weapons, rare different armors and armor types and shields. And we've got some specific accessories, and then we've got some game-changing artifacts in here. Had to design battles, and the number of and the amount of enemies and the level of the NPCs you're going to be coming against. So how many battles should you have a day? So it depends on whether you want to give them sort of easy or normal battles or 1 hard battle. So it says 3 easy battles, you know, 2 normal or 1 normal and 1 easy or 1 hard battle, because depending on how hard it is, it's going to determine how much resources you're going to take off the party. And as the party levels up, the resources and the party stuff isn't going to change, because you're just going to pick different NPCs in the back. It then will explain what is an easy battle and what is a hard battle in here. Creature ranks, so you can make creatures, so these are non-villains, villains, big bad guys, creatures, everything else. They're either going to be soldiers, elites or champions. Now, again, depending on whether you want the battle to be easy, normal or hard, will determine whether you're going to use soldiers, elites or champions. You tend to use soldiers in an easy battle. Normal is going to be elites. Hard battles are going to involve champions in here. And you can take any of the creatures in the back. All the creatures in the back, I think, are all soldiers. I might be corrected as we go through, but in general, they all are. And then if you want to make an elite of that creature, this is what you tend to do. It tells you the things to do. So double their hit points, give them one skill of your choice, give something else they're going to do on the turn. If you want to make them a champion, triple their hit points, give them some additional mind points, variety of other things along those lines. So, because that I think that's one of the things I thought was quite small, is the the bestiary at the back of the book. But you can have the 3 different ranks of them. To stop the combat being static and boring, don't forget to include environmental effects during the combat. So brides in danger, traps and hazards, have unsafe, ground or rocks and things that can fall down. And then finally, it's going to talk to you about boss battles. Now, this should feel epic, because if you've ever played any of those Final Fantasies, anything along those lines, that it's such a fun and frustrating feeling fighting these bosses, especially while you're learning exactly what it's needed to actually take them down and defeat them. And this section is going to talk to them about that. Make sure you're using your Ultima points in there. I say if they've got multiple body parts and different parts that they can fight with different phases and different weapons, make sure the different attacks come through. I like this bit about give the boss battle routine. So let the players know what's coming next, because then they can telegraph their attacks to counter what is coming from the big bad. It's just such a good idea. But again, that is what happened in these computer games. Now, to make the villains feel epic, we've got 8 different things that you do to create your own. And if that feels a little bit complicated, don't worry, because so this will just take you through the different species, the skills they're going to have, spells. More importantly, here we've got a sample boss design. So we've got Angela, the fire mage, and this will just take you through the, again, different 8 steps of what they did off the previous pages from all the choices. And then you're going to get this massive stat block here for this level 20 humanoid. You're not going to use these villains very often. Remember, they've only got 3 different levels, and if they die, they may escape, may come back. So, but this one, this Thorn Shark, so it's a little bit less. So when you are, I'm going to scroll back a page. So when you are looking at this stat block, it shouldn't feel too bad. But okay, we'll just break it down realistically. So we've got the attributes up here. Got how many hit points we're going to get, the magic points, the initiative, any defense or magic defense bonus. We've got the things they're immune to and vulnerable to. But we've just got like basic attacks, which is, standard here, and then the ranged attack, melee attack. We've got a couple of spells, and you're only going to be picking these spells. You're not going to be able to cast all of them every single round. So as much as it seems like a lot, it really isn't, a huge amount. And then when we look at the bestiary, here we go. So we're actually just straight into the bestiary. So we're pretty much now at the end of the book now. This will just give you a breakdown of how to read them. So up here, we've got the level, species, plant here, 15, level 15, a bit of a description and any traits it's got, like creepy, hulking, water sensitive. We've got the 3 attributes in here, any sort of defenses it's going to have, vulnerabilities, its basic attacks. So if I just scroll over, we should see here the attacks here, the main attacks it's going to have, whether it's melee or ranged. Say the players are going to have similar things to this. Any spells it's going to get. Then finally 8 is any other action. So this is going to get a, what's it? Cactroid Juice. The Cactroid heals from slow and weak, and then it performs a Thorn Barrage as a free attack. And then it's going to huge amount of beasts in here. Say all of these are just the basic ones, and so we've got the rules on how to make them better. Yeah, I'm almost convinced. So we've got all different beasts here. So Bombard and a Sun Bear. We've got a lot of constructs, Gargoyle, Magitech Trooper, the demons, ints, elementalists. We've got some humanoids here, some monsters, some plants, and then undead. Anything beyond the undead? Yes, an index, which is, it's hyperlinked as well. I didn't actually think to check the index. And then finally, some inspirational work of video games. Oh, Octopath Traveler. I started that, and I don't know why I stopped playing it. Oh, that's going to take up several years of my life. I'd forgotten. Coming into this, My final thoughts are going to be really, really quick. I think it's just going by this. I need to get everything else now, because I've avoided this for quite a while because I didn't know really what to expect, and I'm utterly blown away. Not only by game mechanics and how clear and simple it is, but I've created a couple of characters. I've had a play with combats and stuff, and I am utterly blown away just how quick, simple this feels. Now, is this suitable for everyone? Yes. Probably not. If you are not a fan of meta currencies, which is brilliant, you honestly need to get used to meta currency, then you may not like this. If you're not a fan of abstract combat where you want it to be tactical, where people can actually hide behind things and gain bonuses for hiding, and people be miles away with a sniper rifle that no one else can attach them, this probably isn't for you. I definitely think everyone should give it a go, though. But for everyone else, I think you're going to have an absolute blast. There aren't many games where the games master and the players create the world together. You then will take that world. Everyone has to be a hero. So it's that, I suppose that actually potentially is another negative, where if you don't want to be a hero in your own game and you want to be sort of evil or sinister, this book isn't for you. You could run it as a non-heroic setting. I don't think you're going to get the benefit out of it. Probably wouldn't make a huge amount of difference, but it's not going for that. This isn't the target audience for this book. This target audience is, do you want to play heroic, high-low fantasy, whatever world it may be, build the world together, go and fix all the problems that you've created in the world building. Level up to level 50, you're going to have a huge amount of hit points. You're going to do lots of hit points in damage. That whole feeling in 5th edition where, you can have 100 odd hit points and the combat's going to last 3 or 4 hours. This isn't going to happen, because one thing 5th edition does badly is you don't actually increase the level of damage in the same way that the hit points go up. All the combats, depending on what level you are, should only still last for 3 to 4, maybe 5 different rounds. It's going to be quick and snappy. Magic users, I think, will slow it down a little bit, but realistically, you haven't got a huge amount of choice in there. You will do as you go up levels, but you can have your favourite spells, but also you're going to start picking, as you go up levels, certain sort of benefits more than once. All those capstone abilities, read them for yourself. They are whoo. So yeah, you might end up just focusing, storming on through to level 10. But the flexibility and what the characters are going to create is going to be amazing. I'd like to see more monsters. I think that is a bit of a criticism. Is yes, you got the different like basic soldiers all the way through to elites, but in essence, we've only got, I think, 20 pages, maybe 25 of different creatures, and sort of 2 to a page. There's probably 50, and I think you're going to get bored quite quickly. I'm interested to see with the world books whether they're going to have new monsters in as well. So there is a Bestiary book that is, I think it's just finished off Kickstarter now, and it is taking late pledges because I may have been looking whether I should do that. But I absolutely love this. I'm blown away with just how clean, easy, and accessible not only the rules but the rule book is itself. Good use of colours, good use of layout, fantastic use of font, and clear, precise titles. I wish more books could be laid out like this. I'm leaving it there. Go and buy it. Pick it up from Dungeonland. Great company. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.